proves we can't ever really know what's going on.
Appearances can be deceptive.
Tom, I was just speculating about a hypothesis. I know I don't know nothing.
Uncertainty. That is appropriate for matters in this world.
There, we're in a tight spot.
Welcome to Framework. This is John, one of the hosts of Framework. With me, as always, the other host of Framework, Al. How you doing, Al?
Oh, John, it's a wonderful day. It's Intolerable Cruelty Day.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
It's the part of every Coen brothers filmography rewatch that film nerds look forward to the most.
Yeah, right. Yeah. A film. What's the cultural identity of the Coen brothers' 2003 film Intolerable Cruelty? It is one of the bad ones, right? That's its identity.
One of the worst. Quite a few people call it the very worst.
This came out between Man Who Wasn't There and No Country for Old Men. They had a sort of that valley there of Intolerable Cruelty and Lady Killers, their studio comedy double feature that everyone dislikes, basically, right?
Everyone but this guy. Because I like this one. And I kind of know why I like it. That is not, I understand it doesn't really translate to anybody else. It has to do with how I saw it initially. But I also think it gets paired with Lady Killers a lot as the nadir, the ditch. But and parts of that, I think it gets a little exaggerated because it makes such a good narrative for No Country for Old Men to be this triumphant comeback, not just sort of like in terms of bad movie to good movie, but it's also, they were doing bad, but also unserious trifles. And now we have the most serious, darkest movie, most artistic movie to return them to their pedestal. I think, but also part of the negative reaction to this is affected by The Man Who Wasn't There more than it gets credited for. Like I said, it always gets paired with The Lady Killers and never with Man Who Wasn't There.
Yeah, that is left out of it. I think it's because everyone forgets about it, though, really.
I think it's because, yes, people forget about it. And when they don't, it also, Man Who Wasn't There has the patina of artistic seriousness to it that Lady Killers and Intolerable Cruelty do not.
They don't, no.
So it's considered a more noble misfire, perhaps, by people who care enough to remember that it exists.
It's a much better movie too, man.
There's nothing, but to my point, there's nothing noble about Intolerable Cruelty as an endeavor, as a story. These characters are not noble or aspirational, really, in any way.
No, it might be the opposite. What's the opposite of noble? That's what this might be.
Ignoble, I guess, would be like the.
That's not clear.
I was saying a crossword clue, but even that you can't put the part of the word in the clue. It doesn't.
Yeah, the ignoble, intolerable cruelty. No. Okay. So, what is this? This is a sort of a. I guess if you were trying to explain this one, you would say, okay, it's a throwback to the romantic comedies of like the 40s and 50s. Sort of smart talking. They're sort of professionals, and they're sort of adversarial battle of the sexes kind of comedy set in the world of divorce litigation, I guess is what we'd say.
I mean, yes, we say set in the world of that. It's like Challengers is set in the world of competitive tennis, sure, but this is an invented world. Like this, there's not a world of divorce litigation that exists like this.
It's presented as a community, as is the sort of adversarial gold digger community that also exists in this.
Yes, they're part of the same ecosystem, which is, it's strange given that, and given just the overall sensibility of this, that it is not a period piece.
Nope,
it feels like a throwback, but not a period piece. They make it pretty explicitly in 2003 for no good reason, I think.
Yeah. Okay. It's to me, this is more of a con artist movie than it is a screwball comedy or anything like that. I mean, it has a big central con going on in it, for one thing, and it's you certainly can't call it a romance. Or I don't know. I mean, maybe
structurally it is.
It believes it is, maybe, or does it? I don't know.
I guess the arc of the characters of the two main heroes is them deciding to sort of consciously embrace being this being a romantic comedy, despite knowing better and knowing that that's not actually the world that they live in. They just kind of decide, well, but we've conquered the world that we live in, the cynical world, and now we're just choosing blindly, sort of like the walking away from the top in Inception. That we're just going to pretend that we've been in a romantic comedy all along.
I guess, man. I mean, like the main thing that doesn't work in this for me is this central relationship at all. It is. I mean, I'm looking for a way that this is like, okay, so the point is that they hate each other, and it's actually quite miserable. And, you know, the main characters completely loathe each other, and that then they've convinced themselves otherwise. And I don't think that's quite there. I think the movie just fails to sell me on them liking each other at all or having any sort of chemistry with one another.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I was laying out is akin to what you were putting forward about the Hudsucker Proxy being, this sort of secret satire of what the conventions it's doing there. I buy that even less here than I do in Hudsucker. So I guess that cuts against what I was just saying. It's a way of looking at it. But yeah, I think mainly this is just I think it wants to be a cynical romantic comedy.
Right.
But ultimately does not believe in its romantic pairing very much.
No, this there are a few movies that hate its protagonists more than this, I feel. There's absolute contempt for these characters. And I'm just like, well, you wrote them, movie. They're your characters. It reminds me a little of the it's an old Patton Oswalt routine about how he used to have a job on VH1 where he was just supposed to be like a talking head, talking about pop culture
best week
events.
Ever.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be like, oh, look at Paris Hilton, she put on some pounds, ho ho ho, and he was just like, I fucking hate her, I hope she dies of AIDS. And he just couldn't keep the sort of bile and hatred he has for the thing he's talking about from just rising to the fore and being the only thing that you can look at. That's the vibe of this film. These are horrible folks, and the movie thinks they're horrible, and it doesn't believe that they care about each other, and it wants. And I don't know if it's aware of this, though.
I don't think it feels like there are any stakes to their horribleness.
I guess not.
Like,
there
that's
aren't.
why I guess I don't hate Miles Massey because what he's doing has no effect on me. Like, I should, I should like. I have more dislike for Paul Newman and Hudsucker Proxy because he's doing things that affect the whole world. This is such an insular and invented community that is doing this financial damage to each other. That they're just passing. I don't know. They're just passing these silly rich men's money back and forth amongst each other. And
essentially, yeah. I mean, I guess that he's got to get a new house would be the ultimate loss. Like,
that would be half of. I mean, I guess Jeffrey Rush literally ends up in the gutter after his divorce.
I guess,
but that's so cartoonishly exaggerated.
Yeah, like
he's like a
he's
cartoon
also
hobo.
fine. He's also fine though. Like,
right?
Like, don't worry, he's all okay at the end. It's like I don't care.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with Jeffrey Rush. The opening of the film. It's Jeffrey Rush driving home, Beverly Hills, singing along to The Boxer, and walking in on his wife.
Simon and Garfunkel is odd in this movie.
I don't get it. It's a good song, I guess. I don't know.
It's not bad, but music has been a real forte of theirs in the past, and here it's just kind of like, okay, I guess you're using a lot of Paul Simon and this Elvis song. It's not bad, but
well, Suspicious Minds, I get. It's about Suspicious Minds. Fine.
Of course.
Very straightforward. Understand that. Yeah, I don't understand the use of the Boxer. But so he comes home to a sort of he's getting cucked by the pool boy joke.
Yeah. His trophy wife is balling the pool boy. They don't even have a pool. That's an okay joke. And she
pulls out a gun. Yeah, it's this is
she
the sort of
jabs him in
shit.
the ass with his lifetime daytime Emmy achievement award or whatever it is because he was a soap opera producer, and that is this movie's fixation on just poking people in the ass or saying ass a lot being the key to a lot of the humor does not fully work for me. I'd say if there's my defense of this movie is based around, there are sequences in this movie that I find to be very, very funny and that I enjoy on their own merits. None of them revolve around Cedric the Entertainer and his I'm going to nail his ass catchphrase, which is not nearly silly enough or vulgar enough, I think, to reach the level of humor that it's pitched at.
Yeah, just one pass on that joke. Just, okay, we're done. That's what he does.
The only thing that's worth it in that whole runner is setting up Heinz the Baron Crossvanefspies, just the best made-up silly name in the history of film, in my opinion.
The name is great, yes.
Yes. And he is speaking in French. He's like, we would say, blah, 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 blah. You would say, make hammer on his fanny? And that being the translation joke there is about the only time that elicits any sort of chuckle from me. But
yeah,
otherwise, that character is a total misfire and too involved in this movie to be that unfunny, I would say.
I think that could be said of many of the supporting characters in Intolerable Cruelty, I believe. One of the Coen's great strengths, as we have detailed repeatedly through this, is this incredible bench of supporting characters that they put in their films, played by great actors, and they give it a real run here. There's way too many characters for this story, and I think one of them works. I think one of these characters works, and it's
which is
Billy Bob Thornton.
I love Billy Bob, and I love the Heinz the Baron Crossvanefspie, which I'm going to say in full every time.
I think the name's fun.
Yes. And I think Richard Jenkins makes a good straight man, but that character is not, an indelible Coen character by any stretch. It's just the straight man role. I kind of like Paul Adelstein as Clooney's second. Although
he's
it is
good.
A character very much in the mold of Brandt, and it makes you think like, ooh, if they could have got Philip Seymour Hoffman for this movie would be several times better.
Yeah, that would have helped. But even still, that character has nothing going on. He is somebody for Clooney to talk to, essentially.
Absolutely.
That's it. It's neat to see Paul Adelstein, character actor who usually doesn't get to play roles this big, kind of take on a sizable role. But that's about all I got for him. He's good. All these people are good. All these people are capable of being very funny in a Coen Brothers movie, I think so. In theory. It didn't happen in this case, but, Jeffrey Rush and Cedric the Entertainer could be in a good Coen Brothers film. I don't think there's any problem there.
They could be. And like this one, I like it when it's at its most screwball, I suppose, which is in like the courtroom scenes and the negotiating scenes with Jenkins and stuff about that. Well, what about Kershner? Well, Kershner was in Kentucky. Well, forget about Kershner. What's your final offer? And then he goes, what are you, crazy? You forgot about Kershner?
Those are all right.
They can do that stuff.
It's also just like we've seen them do better versions of that so often in this watching their last 9 films. That's like one of their talents is writing those scenes, and these are some of them, the least good ones that they've done. Clooney tries like hell.
Brother and Raising Arizona have those to a degree. Coming right off of Man Who Wasn't There.
Well, that doesn't have them.
That's their most
Lebowski
movie,
does.
So.
Fargo has them. These scenes exist in those.
Lebowski and Fargo are more languidly paced than the other ones I mentioned, I guess is what I was getting at. And of course,
these are fast
it doesn't get any more languid than The Man Who Wasn't There. It's right.
Well, yeah, they are emulating a specific kind of like Ernst Lubitsch comedy, or Cary Grant. And I will say George Clooney is he's trying like hell to sell this, and this is like at the height of his sort of movie star charisma and sexiness, and he just looks incredible on camera, and he's got the timing, he's funny, he's doing really a lot of work here. I don't think the character works. I don't think this guy works at all. I don't care about Miles Massey one way or the other. Really.
I do not care about him, but I think the character works, if that distinction makes any sense, because I think he's doing a very good Cary Grant. There, you're right.
He really is.
Powers to bear. And yes, to a lesser extent than Oh Brother, of course. but I think he sells a lot of stuff that maybe shouldn't work. I mean, I find it amusing when he's sitting there on the tennis court and the machine is just firing balls at him and he's just holding his racket still and having him bounce off it back over the net because he is just in this existential malaise of having no more worlds to conquer because he lives in this insular world of gold digging and divorce proceedings that he has just completely mastered. And that just visually conveys that.
Yeah, I mean this movie is full of stuff like that, where the idea is kind of cleverly presented, and there's a moment that is fun, and there's a grace note to the performance that works, because they're the Coen brothers, and it's George Clooney, and he's doing his thing. I think as written, this character is very tough to play, though. I think, and I know that it has to be a Cary Grant thing because that's what they're doing here. But like I don't think this guy is sad or lonely. I do not think he lacks for female companionship. I don't think he's worried about turning into the weird fucking wealth ghoul in the basement. They have the other partner, which is very Coen's actually.
That's like the most Coen thing in this movie. Because one thing about this too. This went through a lot of hands. They did not write this movie necessarily. They did a pass on it, but it was a script that had been kicked around for a long time. It feels like it could have been being kicked around since the 60s. But
this is the closest to for hire I think that they've ever done.
And I think that's part of the narrative of why it's their worst too, from aficionados and tourists. They like that as an explanation for what's so bad about this.
I mean, it's something they clearly had an interest in. It's more 1950s movies, that they're emulating, which is very much their kind of thing.
The decrepit old ghoul behind the desk in the dark room. That is the most Coen brother touch of the whole thing.
I enjoy him.
A real Arthur Digby Sellers type. And we'll see. I mean, there's things that in this that feel like call forwards to things that will be in their more personal movies going forward, like that. The old rabbi and a serious man that's set up very similarly to that old law partner here. The intruder machine that we hear about in the opening divorce proceeding that cost the wife the use of the appliance for several months. But that, the Coens are very interested in silly men building sex machines in their spare time.
Well, you say burn after reading that this actually feels like a dry run for that. This feels like trying to get that movie right, I guess, or they struggled to make burn after reading in this film, failed, and then went on to fix it later. Is that that's how I place it in the continuity of Coen brother films, I guess. It's sort of that kind of actually has I guess the courage of its convictions a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's the divide that you and I seem to be certainly is that you're saying like, well, I don't like these characters. And I'm like, well, I don't hate these characters. And then a bird after reading, they're like, I think they realize maybe we didn't go far enough here with Intolerable Cruelty. And no, it's okay to hate these characters. Come on.
Right.
And there it comes across more effectively for that.
Burn After Reading is not my favorite either. I mean, and I think that is an issue for me in that one too. But I think it's a more successful version of it for sure. Like, and it's not like that. I find these characters hateful so much. I do, but more than that, I don't really enjoy their company. I think they're not much fun to hang out with. I guess
I do. I guess I'm very charmed by Clooney in this mode.
Clooney's good. Clooney's very good. I just don't buy a lot of the shit he's asked to do. I really don't buy them falling in love. Like his big speech at the No Man conference.
And Bird After Reading is not going to ask you to make that kind of leap and care about a romantic comedy resolution to this. No. I do like. I love that speech at the No Man conference just for the bit building up to the bit where he says, "I'm gonna." It's the last time I will address you as a divorce attorney. I'm going to devote myself to pro bono work in East Los Angeles or one of those other. He just like one of those, waves his hand dismissively. One of those, places. That I remember cracking up in the theater at that little hand wave.
Oh no, it's one of the funniest moments in the film for sure. Absolutely, I remember.
I think it's one of the funniest moments in their filmography.
It's a burn after reading joke though. It's just
Yes,
like what
very
a
much.
piece of shit this guy is. Like, and it's the only moment in that scene that seems to be in on that joke. Or it all is, and it's just doing a thing that I don't think works. I don't know. I mean, I think when we talk about how they're nihilists, the Coens, I think we're pointing at stuff, that is like, well, No Country for Old Men, obviously. Well, what a nihilistic film. I think this is a way more nihilistic film.
Yes, you could make the argument that this is a more nihilistic film than No Country for Old Men, because arguably they don't care about this one.
Right.
They care about the nihilism in No Country for Old Men. They're engaged with it fully.
Yeah, that's a movie about nihilism.
Right.
This is one where it's just like, nothing fucking matters. Look at these assholes. Look at these fucking assholes.
So yeah, it's like, well, that doesn't fucking matter. So here's your slop. I mean, that's the wrap on it. Again, I guess I enjoy the slop more than some people. And there are gags in here that just do not work. Like I said, the Cedric the Entertainer stuff does not work. I don't think Rex Rexroth having a train fetish is silly or strange enough for what it's going for.
I'm impressed they built a train sex dungeon for all of 45 seconds.
Right.
That's something. Yeah.
So there's that. I mean, I guess there's just the hit to miss ratio on the gags matters more in something like this, where there is not an emotional component to it. But also the lack of the emotional component. Like I said, the miraculous thing about Raising Arizona is that movie is just as silly as this, and yet it sells this emotional ending. And there's a through line there, and maybe if it doesn't quite rise to the level of philosophy, there's things going on there more so than this one. And that's why Raising Arizona is a miracle of a movie, and this is an amusing diversion at best. I guess that's what I'm as a proponent of it. I'm saying it is.
No, I think that I don't think people hate this film. I mean, I'm close, but I was reading reviews on it, and actually people are kind of okay with it. To be frank, like this didn't get great reviews, didn't make much money, but if you read people's individual views on it, they're mostly just like, yeah, I like this, this did a thing. There's some fun performances. I'm
assuming that there's not a lot of reviews from later on. Ebert's not revisiting his initial review to this one. They're all from in the moment when it's like, yeah, okay, that was an amusing hour and 40 minutes in the theater.
Absolutely. There is no retrospective stuff on this. I couldn't find a single anything on YouTube. There's no theory crackers, and it's a Coen Brothers movie. This this has no cultural footprint beyond, well, it's one of their bad ones. Like no one's revisiting this. And I don't know. I think that's fine personally, but no,
it is. I'm not going to argue this is essential by any means.
No.
But I've alluded to it, so I'll tell you like the circumstances under which I saw this.
Please, yes.
In 2001, I was doing a study abroad semester in college, and so as a young movie dork, far from home, I went from going to the theater 2 or 3 times a week to there was one English. Or one theater in town that sometimes played English language movies. I went to 2 movies there the whole semester when I was homesick. And the movies I saw were The Matrix Revolutions, which was an enormous disappointment and I will go to my grave never forgiving that movie probably because of that. And this one, which felt like a breath of fresh air and comfort familiarity of home. I had been to the theater once before, and I sat there throughout Revolutions with my arms crossed the whole time going, Jesus Christ, this is bad. And this one, I actually laughed. And because of that, I always have some affection for it.
I imagine watching this in, shortly after Matrix Revolutions would improve it. Yes. I think that would definitely play to its benefits. It's maybe just because its goals are so different too, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
This is not trying to be huge or wildly, like satisfying in that way. This is just sort of a cynical, just sort of like fuck off.
Yeah. I had expectations built up for Matrix Revolution so much. There was a lot riding on that one. And this one, there's nothing. I saw a poster that said from, the makers of Fargo and The Big Lebowski. And this was at a time when the cult of Lebowski was still building. Right. And, I got to feel like I had been an early adopter on Lebowski. You'd be like, oh, we got like this. You guys, we should go see this one. Big Lebowski's great. This will be great too. So got in, could feel like I was sitting on the ground floor on an elevator that never went anywhere in terms of intolerable cruelty, but I just don't know. I've always maintained some affection for it, and I think it just has these sequences that work for me. These, whenever the lawyers are lawyering and arguing in their screwball way, that's what it works for me.
This is what I imagined, because I'd gotten some impression that you were kinder on this film than its reputation. I imagined it was because it's like the old saying, no one likes lawyer jokes more than a lawyer. Must have had something
but usually,
to do with that.
I think no one tends to dislike legal thrillers more than lawyers.
That's interesting. Okay. Well, this isn't that exactly, but it's
no, it's not. But that's what I mean. Like this, to a lot of degree, like there's a familiarity breeds contempt, or just like knowledge of the subject matter can, like the experts in a field are not going to usually enjoy the movie about that thing because they're aware of all the ways it's phony. And the phoniness to this, yes. Honestly, I don't think lawyer training has anything to do with my affection to this, mainly because I saw it before I went to law school, but fair. Also because this is not how litigation works by any stretch anywhere.
Well, it has open contempt for the profession, so there is that.
Clooney lays it out like, we'll have these argumentation here, but we'll reach an equilibrium level of compromise based on the skill level of the individual lawyers. And it's like, well, no, actually, the facts of the case are mainly going to be the thing that decides the outcome of that case. Like the skill level of the lawyers will can affect things on the margins. And
well, these are cartoon lawyers. These are
exactly they're magicians.
Johnny Cochran on South Park, kind of. This is yeah. I mean, the entire
they present lawyers as stage magicians. That's not as
yes,
people doing any actual legal work.
I mean, that's a take. I suppose, I don't know, that's sort of just a conceit of this style of thing, right? I mean, it's a little bit Adam's rib, a little bit Battle of the Sexes kind of stuff, within.
Oh, yeah, it's way more that than it is any legal stuff. Mm-hmm. The other, actually, the way I thought about more than lawyer stuff, I thought, am I going to have a different view on this being a movie about divorce and Battle of the Sexes and marriage and all that as a married man than as a single student? And it turns out, no, not really, because I don't think this really has anything to do with marriage or divorce either. Like this is a theoretical Battle of the Sexes thing. These are not real romantic relationships, much less marital relationships.
No, I mean, I'm like stretching to find like something to kind of human to base these characters in, and I'm just like, so I guess they're attracted to each other's outrageous greed is sort of the common ground they have. That's the turn on in a sense.
Well, they're players of the game.
Yeah, okay. Uh-huh.
They view each other as sort of as
we're the opponent.
I don't know, kind of Moriarty to their Sherlock or whatever. It's the Titan on the other side of their field. I don't know. I mean, there's a respect, I suppose, of the gamesmanship is the only thing I can come up with as a real basis for their liking each other.
Well, I mean, I guess
and it's like they want to sleep together because obviously these are two of the most beautiful people that have ever existed at the heights of their gorgeousness. I
mean, that is sort of unavoidable. Is like they look amazing in this movie. Yeah. They are such stunning people, as photographed at circa 2003 here. It's wild looking at Clooney and Catherine Zeta-Jones in this. Catherine Zeta-Jones, my goodness, luminous.
Oh yeah.
I think she's terrible in this. I think it's the worst performance I've ever seen from her.
No, I don't think she's bad, but the part is very underwritten compared to
the part is nothing.
It's not a two-hander.
Yeah, this part is almost unplayable.
Yeah. I think that's because of the Khan movie thing you were talking about. That
right.
we are with him and his perspective the whole time because he's the mark of the Khan for a certain point. So she has to be opaque to us for big chunks of the movie. I think she does an okay job within this cartoon milieu of getting across like some actual like ennui and loneliness peeking through.
I mean, the script kind of demands that to just sort of like be about anything or have any sort of like recognizable human characteristics in these people. So it gives them these moments where just like, I'm actually sad about this life I live. And I mean, this is where I feel like I want it to be like like guns ablazing satire here. I want this to be the Mr. Show sketch about the the basketball recruiters. Where it's just the hatefulness of the lives they live just overwhelms them in the end.
I thought you were going to Mr. Show sketch of the guys who get into the homophobic fight about I'll frickin' marry you, man, and then end up living their whole lives together.
Well, I mean, that also is satire. That also would be something that, like a satirical angle to this when this tries to like cram its bile into the conventional romantic comedy formula. And so it has them at the end and they're just like, yeah, oh, I hope nothing bad happens to him. They're trying to murder each other. Like,
yeah, the turn into the murder plot is a tough one to sell. But it
for
does
money.
give us
Money. That's it. There's not even like
no. It's for the honor of the firm. It will ruin the firm's reputation if he is known as a mark that got soaked by his.
Even better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a better motivation actually, but it goes by so fast that it doesn't even register.
Yeah, coming from the wealth ghoul in the basement, you must do this thing now. You have to kill her, and then I don't know. Is he the nemesis figure, such as it is?
Oh, Wheezy Joe is, yeah.
You think Wheezy Joe is? That was my first thought. But maybe Herb is. Maybe Herb's the nemesis figure. He's the dark image of him. He's the shadow self, at least.
You can make the argument that Herb is the greater villain ultimately, but the decrepit old ghoul behind the desk in the dark room is a different Coen archetype than the nemesis figure.
Right.
Which is the one actually stalking through the house with the gun. Sure.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But Wheezy Joe is so, I don't know. He's the kind of guy that Bugs Bunny fights, essentially.
Yeah.
He's a Looney Tunes villain. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's Looney Tunes has always been part of the repertoire.
I suppose so.
But those two archetypes are the things that make this most identifiably Coen's, I think. Yeah.
I mean, it's impressive the names they can bring to bear, like to get Jeffrey Rush and Billy Bob Thornton to come in for these roles. You got to be the Coen brothers to do that. I don't know what use they really get out of him. Well, Billy Bob, like I said, when he shows up, he really changes the atmosphere and the tone. Like immediately, I'm actually laughing for the first time in a little while. I'm just like everything that comes out of his mouth is very funny. His mood and his vibe is just so different than what's been going on, and I love him in this. Actually, I think he's wonderful. He's maybe the only performance I think totally works. Actually, what with being on screen 5 minutes, maybe it's a little easier in that case.
Well, I think they wanted to give him some dialogue to actually do after the man who wasn't there. They made him stand there and smoke quietly for the whole movie, and I think they wanted to reward him with a fun role, which I think succeeds. Like you said, he is a lot of fun as he's running his mouth. Another weird,
he's guileless in a way the other marks aren't, though. I mean, well, he's also
he's an actor,
as it turns out. Yeah, but
he's playing playing the part of guileless.
Mm-hmm. But like Rex Roth and what are the Australian asshole that Rush is playing? These are like these are just as nasty figures as the lawyers and the gold diggers. They're buffoons as well. Billy Bob is actually like playing sweetness as a fake, of course, because that's the kind of movie this is. But that I think is what really makes him pop in the film, is that he's the only one on doing that sort of acting.
He's a counterpoint in that way, at least. You're right. He's playing sincerity.
Mm-hmm. He should have been more in the stable. I wish he'd been in some more Coen Brothers movies. I think he's quite good here. He's a great actor, and they use him well.
A weird thing with that character, his name is Howard Doyle. It isn't the Alden Eric in Hail Caesar called Hobie Doyle?
I don't know. Let's find out right now as I Google it.
And then I also believe that the judge in the courtroom scene who
totally
will allow it is named Marva Munson, which I believe is also the name of the old lady and the lady killers coming up next. Just weird call forwards or reuses of names. I don't know what that means, but just something that pops up when you're watching all these in a row, something that pops up to your mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of stuff that kind of is consistently popping up, being, you repeating themes, repeating ideas, a lot of the same stuff kind of rearing its head. I mean, I think everyone could tell you some of the things that are true of that with Coen's, and watching these all in succession, I'm getting a very strong sense of it. Like the uncertainty principle showing up in Man Who Wasn't There, things like that. I'm just like, wow, it really is a cohesive through line through the whole filmography. It's all this stuff. This one similarly. I mean, it's a con artist movie. That's sort of inherent to this.
Yeah, well, and another. I mean, even like on the smaller scale, I suppose they give Clooney another like physical thing to preen over. Mm-hmm. Like instead of his hair gel, in this one, it's his teeth whitening treatments and everything. And he's constantly checking his teeth. And I guess in Burn After Reading, it'll be being preoccupied with getting a run in. But they seem to find something important about giving him something physical to focus on. Maybe it's a way of taming his head bobs back in the day. Like, no, you're going to act through your hair in this one. You're going to act through your teeth in this one. Whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. All right. So here's the thing. I'm like out of things to say about this movie. I don't think it works. I don't know. Do you have more on this? Do you have a greater theory of how this fits in? Or yeah.
No, it's not one for greater theories. It is. I just want I think all the negotiation back and forth stuff is very fun. I think Heinz the Baron Cross von Espy is one of the funnest silly characters in their filmography, and the part where the one thing I caught this time when Jeffrey Rush runs at the witness stand and starts choking him, he kind of gurgles out, "Oh, please, sir, not the larynx," which is just a strange thing to say to somebody who's choking you.
Well, that was Edward Herrmann, actually, another one of the sort of vile character actors.
Oh, sorry.
The train fetishist.
Yes, the train guy, but I don't know what I said now. But I like just all the stuff of Richard Jenkins trying to object for reciting poetry. And the judge saying, I'll allow it. Eventually he's objecting to strangling the witness. And she's, I'm going to allow it. There's just a great comic build to that.
A very silly scene. Yes.
Yes.
I was kind of like, I got to admit, I even the whole Heinz the Baron Cross von Espy sequence, I'm a little bit sitting there with my arms folded, just being like, this isn't working for me.
The only other thing I really want to highlight about this is that somehow this is the most expensive Coen Brothers movie ever made.
What? Really? No way.
And it did like well enough overseas. I don't think it lost money or anything. It's not a debacle like Hudsucker Proxy was. But you just look at this and go, how did this
salary
more expensive than? I think that's a big part of that is because it was kicking around for so long. It accumulated a lot of writers and producers that kind of things. And the way that it feels like a period piece, even though it isn't technically. It seems like they actually rented out Caesar's Palace to shoot there. For like, why? Yeah. You don't need to do that for this movie whatsoever.
No,
but probably not cheap.
Mm-hmm. I suppose, yeah.
I mean, I guess
I would have guessed,
even though it's not a period, it's lifestyle is the rich and famous a little bit. Like,
sure, yeah, but they got rich houses sitting all over LA to shoot in.
Yeah, you would think so. Yeah, these don't need to be like they can be tacky rich,
I would also say this is like one of the least striking visually films of. It's not poorly shot or anything, but it doesn't have a lot of identity. I don't think visually. Right. There's I mean, aside from Herb Ryerson's Office, I can't really think of any moments that specifically call attention to themselves in that way.
Yeah, I mean the costumes are good, but not
sure.
I mean, in just a sort of fancy movie stars looking glamorous kind of way.
Right, of course.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, look, this is one. I can't move it very far up the rankings because it is a thing that they've got movies that are funnier than this. They got some movies that are funnier than this that manage it with more heart. They've got movies that are funnier than this that manage the cynicism more effectively.
Yeah.
And they have more visually accomplished movies too. So yeah, it's not one of their best. I think it's fine. It's a fairly, it's a little over an hour and a half long, and it makes me chuckle.
And I can agree with that. I don't think I laugh very much at this film. It feels, I don't want to say anonymous, because it's clearly their film, and it's a lot darker than this kind of movie normally would be. Just in that it seems to hold its characters in contempt. Maybe a little bit like I don't know. There was a spate of these in the late '90s. Very Bad Things. Kind of studio comedies about like how awful things get, and crime was committed. Oh no, murder. We're still laughing though, and it feels a little like that. But there's no murder in this. There's nothing like that at all. It's just nastiness. But it
doesn't even register me as nasty. It's so unimportant whether these people win or lose or rise or fall to me that again, like Burn After Reading, we'll take that in a different direction.
Sure.
First, we have to do the Lady Killers.
Yeah,
Lady Killers. I think going into this was my pick for actual nadir of their output. So
I'm curious to revisit it. I think I like it more than this one. I think I enjoy some of the aspects of Lady Killers enough to maybe think it's okay. We will see. I haven't seen it since it came out. I remember liking Hanks quite a bit in it. Maybe it's just the community theater aspect of seeing him do that role at that time in his career was fun. But we'll see if that holds up 20 years later.
Well, we'll see. That's the bar has been set for the Lady Killers to waltz over.
Yeah, that's true. Right. It wouldn't have to do much to succeed in my eyes at this point. It's got such a reputation. I think I'll rewatch the original too. I've never seen that.
No, I can't promise I'll do that.
Yeah, maybe I won't either. All right.
Till next
Thank
time.
you for listening. Really, that's it? 40 minutes? We got nothing else for Intolerable Cruelty?
Yes. Well, I have to go commit to myself to watching original movies of the Lady Killers or some other thing like that.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of Coen-Oscopy, Intolerable Cruelty. Goodbye. I can do a better one than that. Let me see here.
I mean, you can just fade us out earlier, but even it doesn't matter.
Just a quick button, just in case. All right, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening.
Speculating about a hypothesis. I know I don't know how.
Uncertainty. That is appropriate for matters of this world.
There, run a tight back.